Okay, so we're once again back in the atrium, and I was trying to solve this puzzle forever, and you know what the solution was? You have to look through the glass to figure it out. So looking through this blue glass, for instance, shows us the solution here, and looking through, well, first I thought it was the yellow glass because it seems like a solvable puzzle. The blue glass seems a lot more difficult, but in ultimate, yeah, at the end of the day, I ultimately decided, okay, none of this is actually working. I can't seem to figure out the solution here. It's clearly not just one color of glass. It might be multiple layers, or maybe there's another window somewhere. So after trying forever to solve this one, I just sort of, got tired, stepped away for a second, and it's in that act of stepping away that it all came, full circle. It's like, oh. So that's how we're going to do this now. Okay. Then I came up here, and I got to say, these are some of my favorite rooms. They are so beautiful just because of the hard, solid, vibrant colors here. And there's a lot of magenta and other shades you don't normally see in lighting anywhere. Outside of the 80s, I suppose. So I set, this up, and then I'm like, okay, now I've got to close the door. At first I thought, maybe I could ride the wall and show up on the roof. I don't know if there's a way to do that, but that would be very cool. It's very fun just looking out there at all this stuff out there. But yeah, once it's closed, it's like obvious how to do these. Hugging the walls is basically a solution through all of these, but it's no longer about the difficulty in solving the puzzle as much as it is about the difficulty in figuring out what the lighting conditions are. I also won't lie, I spent a lot of time in this room because it just was so pretty. I wanted to find something. I wanted there to be something in here that was going to be meaningful, but unfortunately it was just red and blue, and then the bottom floor was just all solid blue, and one up top solid red, but I couldn't get up there. Or sorry, yes I could. That's where I had to go. So I went to the red room, and then here it was kind of obvious what was going to happen. So that leads to the next floor. And then basically you have to just solve a puzzle that's the same puzzle on each floor using the same lighting. And what's really funny about this particular puzzle is it's actually very similar, if not exactly the same, as a puzzle that's like the last one you do for the tutorial for this area. So there's actually a lot of similarities there. I also regret not checking the blue floor and the green floor above this one. This is like the blue-green floor. I actually got stuck on here a bit because the solution is blocked, and you have to figure out what the solution is for the green floor. I wonder what would happen if you stopped off on the green floor on its way up and actually got trapped in there, because I imagine there could be like some sort of hidden Easter egg or like item, and I'd like to get trapped up there to see what's up there. But yeah, here, see, it's like I'm stuck in this room now because there's no way down, and I don't remember any of the patterns to go back up, but I'm glad I was recording, so I looked back at the recordings and I tried to, come up with some solutions. I eventually ran a Photoshop filter on the thing, and that showed me, okay, so this is the green floor and that's the next floor. But I really do want to know what's on that green floor, Like, what is there? So I'll have to come back here sometime and check that out and see if there's any secrets there. There's probably none at all, but it'd be cool. And then here I was like, wait a minute, this looks very familiar. This looks very, even the yellow, because it used to be blue on the background, and there were those three yellow, and remember how I made the comment about how it looked like the human rights symbol or IKEA, and I was like, wait, this is the same freaking, what? But, so then I was like, what was the solution for that one again? Because it was kind of hard, and I'm like, oh, now I have to think about it. Okay, there it is. So I redrew the same solution. Surprisingly, it worked, and then I came up here, and I was like, okay, laser me. Like, before the elevator even stops, I'm just laser me. I'm done. So I watched the laser. And the funny thing about this laser's deployment is it was backwards. It was, like, facing the ocean. So I was like, is there another island? Is there some other secret thing I'm on? Oh, God, it's turning towards me. It's going to blast me. But then it started aiming upward. And I'm like, okay, cool. All right. As long as the laser isn't trying to, melt my face off, I guess I'm fine. So I went back down. And I jumped off the elevator and hopefully didn't trap it on any inaccessible floors, because without the stairs in there, I imagine it'd be quite hard to get back on the elevator if it's on a floor that doesn't have stairs. Well, anyway, so then I headed back up the mountain, and and I wanted to see what was at the top. I was just super curious, even though I hadn't finished all the lasers, and I know that's like the big reward to go up there once all the lasers are finally there. I just wanted to know what was waiting for me at the top. I was so curious. Like, was it going to be like this big puzzle that was going to be segmented into parts, and each part was going to be unlocked by a part of the laser hitting it or something? I was just, really curious. And what was up there actually kind of surprised me, but we'll get to that in a sec. First, I want to talk a little bit about this side puzzle that I found on the mountain on my way up. It seems doable. It seems very easily doable, and it follows all the lessons that we learned almost like by video 3, I think, because it's symmetry. There's 2 lines here. One is invisible, but there's actually 2 lines. And for the life of me, I can't figure out the solution to it, so that's why I made a recording of that in the hopes that I find it. So now there's a guy with a chisel and a computer, and there's these 2 people who are arguing over what I would only guess is science versus religion, and then there's another person with a laptop and a chisel. This person's like being super like violent to a pillar, and then whatever the hell that situation is, I don't even know how to describe it, and then there's this, and an audio thing.
Up there, you go around every hour and a half, time after time after time. You wake up usually in the mornings, and just the way that the track of your orbits go, you wake up over the Mideast, over North Africa. As you eat breakfast, you look out the window as you're going past, and there's the Mediterranean area, and Greece, and Rome, and North Africa, and the Sinai, the whole area. And you realize that in one glance, that what you're seeing is what was the whole history of man for years, the cradle of civilization. And you go around down across North Africa and out over the Indian Ocean and look up at that great subcontinent of India pointed down toward you as you go past it. And Ceylon off to the side, Burma, Southeast Asia, out over the Philippines, and up across that monstrous Pacific Ocean. Vast body of water. You've never realized how big that is before. And you finally come up across the coast of California and look for those friendly things. Los Angeles and Phoenix and on across El Paso. And there's Houston. There's home. And you look, and sure enough, there's the Astrodome. And you identify with that, It's an attachment. And down across New Orleans, and then looking down to the south, and there's the whole peninsula of Florida laid out. And all the hundreds of hours you spent flying across that route, down in the atmosphere, all that is friendly again. And you go out across the Atlantic Ocean and back across Africa. And you do it again, and again, and again. And that identity, that you identify with Houston, and then you identify with Los Angeles, and Phoenix, and New Orleans, and everything. And the next thing you recognize in yourself is you're identifying with North Africa. You look forward to that. You anticipate it. And there it is. That whole process begins to shift of what it is you identify with. When you go around it in an hour and a half, you begin to recognize that your identity is with that whole thing. And that makes a change. You look down there, and you can't imagine how many borders and boundaries you crossed again and again and again. And you don't even see them. At that wake-up scene, the Mideast, there are hundreds of people killing each other over some imaginary line that you can't see. From where you see it, the thing is a whole, and it's so beautiful. And you wish you could take one from each side in hand and say, look at it from this perspective. Look at that. What's important? And so a little later on, your friend, again those same neighbors, another astronaut, the person next to you goes out to the moon. And now he looks back and sees the Earth not as something big where he can see the beautiful details, but he sees the Earth as a small thing out there. And now that contrast between that bright blue and white Christmas tree ornament and that black sky, that infinite universe, really comes through. The size of it, the significance of it, it becomes both things. It becomes so small and so fragile, and such a precious little spot in that universe that you can block it out with your thumb. And you realize that on that small spot, that little blue and white thing is everything that means anything to you. All of history and music and poetry and art and war and death and birth and love, tears, joy, games, all of it is on that little spot out there that you can cover with your thumb. And you realize that that perspective, that you've changed, that there's something new there. That relationship is no longer what it was. And then you look back on the time when you were outside on that EVA and those few moments that you had the time because the camera malfunctioned, that you had the time to think about what was happening. And you recall staring out there at the spectacle that went before your eyes. Because now, you're no longer inside something with a window looking out at a picture. But now you're out there, and what you've got around your head is a goldfish bowl, and there are no limits here. There are no frames. There are no boundaries. You're really out there, over it, floating, going 25,000 miles per hour, ripping through space, a vacuum, and there's not a sound. There's a silence, the depth of which you've never experienced before. And that silence contrasts so markedly with the scenery and the speed with which you know you're going. That contrast, the mix of those two things, really comes through. And you think about what you're experiencing and why. Do you deserve this? This fantastic experience? Have you earned this in some way? Are you separated out to be touched by God to have some special experience here that other men cannot have? You know the answer to that is no. There's nothing that you've done that deserves that earned that. It's not a special thing for you. You know very well at that moment, and it comes through to you so powerfully that you're the sensing element for man. You look down and see the surface of that globe that you've lived on all this time, and you know all those people down there. They are like you. They are you. And somehow you represent them when you are up there. A sensing element, that point out on the end, and that's a humbling feeling. It's a feeling that says you have a responsibility. It's not for yourself. The eye that doesn't see does not do justice to the body. That's why it's there. That's why you're out there. And somehow you recognize that you're a piece of this total life. You're out on that forefront and you have to bring that back somehow. And that becomes a rather special responsibility. It tells you something about your relationship with this thing we call life. And when you come back, there's a difference in that world now. There's a difference in that relationship between you and that planet, and you and all those other forms of life on that planet, because you've had that kind of experience. It's a difference, and it's so precious. And all through this, I've used the word you because it's not me. It's not Dave Scott. It's not Dick Gordon, Pete Conrad, John Glenn. It's you. It's us. It's we. It's life. It's had that experience. And it's not just my problem to integrate. It's not my challenge to integrate, my joy to integrate. It's yours. It's everybody's. Russell Schweikart, 1975.
I gotta say, those are some really powerful words, especially when you're like standing at the top of the mountain and you're looking at the whole world. And in a way, it's like, this is our world. This is the world that we've done all these things to, all these little parts. And I imagine those words are going to be even more meaningful when you see all those lasers up there. So I kind of feel like I might have gotten up there a little bit too early. But at the same time, I had to know. I was just so curious as to what it's all leading up to. And really, I think that's really, really touching. And I do wonder what that final puzzle is going to unlock. I feel like there's something else going on here about like these people needing somebody to witness all these things, somebody who's here to look at all these puzzles. In a way, I think we are the witness. You know, we're the person who's come here to look at all of this, and it's, you know, pretty brightness and its, dank underwater creepiness, to just sort of examine all of this and what it has to say, and to try to glean meaning from it ourselves by just observing the world. And I think that a lot of the message of The Witness is to say, it's not about the creator. Stop trying to look at Jonathan Blow, the creator. Try to look at the world and what can we glean from it. Like here, this is my old nemesis. I came back after traveling for a bit, and I'm like, I remember this puzzle, and I could not figure it out, and I still, am bothered by this so much. I have to solve it because now I know how containers work. I draw a line as if it were fitting these two things in it. And ultimately, I had to resort to using MS Paint. So I took a screenshot, put it in Paint, and I drew over it, and I said, okay, if I was to line these two up, how would they fit perfectly? And I was like, that's it. And there we go. So that's how I figured that one out, finally. And that was the entryway. That's the lock on the door to get into this part. And then here, there are some more locks that are just sort of trying to say, have you been through this part yet? Have you been through this part yet? Because I think that a lot of the keys, like Jonathan said, are based on knowledge. You don't have to have some sort of a key you pick up in the game. The key is knowledge based. So because we already know how to solve these, I could just solve them lickety split and be like, okay, boom, just segment off the white, and then there we go. And then over here, I just got to fill in all these dots, and that's done. Very basic stuff. And then suddenly, subversion. Again, always subversion. So there's no way I can get all the dots, but it still worked with leaving one dot behind, and I still couldn't figure out why that was. It bothered me. So here, again, it won't let me solve it unless I leave a dot behind, and I'm like, that's strange. It's making me want to segment this try thing off with a dot. Like, it needs a dot to eat. Like, it's hungry. So I gave it a dot, and it's like, oh, okay, so I feed it a dot. That's very strange. That's very subversive to the norm. So I keep doing this dot feeding thing, and it's working every time, and I'm like, okay, well, didn't expect that to happen. But then I got stuck here because, surprisingly, by making the puzzle easier by allowing you to have an error, it's actually harder because you have to work an error into the puzzle. So the simpler the puzzle, the harder it gets in this case, because you have to find a way to make an error happen where it's difficult to do so. So doing these up here, which I'm pretty sure I'm supposed to actually be closer to them, but I was doing from way back here because the game lets you, I was like having to find little things to segment off and say, okay, you get this one because it's the one that's not supposed to be in with the pairing, but it has to be because you have to feed the tri-mouth thing. I'll just call it the Sarlacc because it looks like a Sarlacc mouth. Not really. I don't know. It's just the shape. So, we got to feed the Sarlacc, and so that's what I do. And it just keeps going and going and going in this vein of having to solve these in a way that is wrong, and that in itself is so fun. It's so fun to have to make an error happen. But then I get to this board, and it's like impossible. I cannot figure this one out for the life of me. So now I'm stuck on these two boards, and that's basically where I am. This is essentially where I am at this point, stopping off for my filming for today. I'm going to go to bed now and rest up because I've got a lot of work in the morning I got to do. But for what this has been so far, I got to say I'm having a really good time. And I hope that you're having a good time too, coming along with me on this little sort of gentle puzzle-solving journey. And I'll see you all next time, probably tomorrow. And a lot on the weekend would be my guess. All right, see ya.